All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. I know that not everybody who wanted to be here could. We've got lots happening in the building today, so this meeting is being recorded. And I would encourage you to send that to folks in your own networks of small groups and ministry teams if you'd like to help share this information. I want to offer a quick word of thanks to all of our Budget and Operations Committee members. They have had the Herculean task of trying to get ourselves pulled back together from some COVID chaos, and they've done an absolutely phenomenal job at that. I also want to thank Julie Hansen, who is one of our contractors that helps handle all of our accounting here. Julie is with us online today, so if you want to join me in saying hello to Julie and thanks to her for all of her hard work too. We're going to open with a quick word of prayer. I'm going to share an update about stewardship, and then I'm going to sit down and be quiet and let our budget and operations team do what they do best. But let's start with a word of prayer. God, we give you thanks for the many good gifts in our lives. We've been reminded again today of the gifts of music and community, of intergenerational and diverse community, and for all those things that you've blessed us with here at Silver Spring UMC. We just offer you praise and thanksgiving. We ask that as we continue to seek faithfulness with the good gifts that you've given us, that you would help us be thoughtful and discerning, that you would help us be creative, that we might better serve the needs of our neighbors in everything we do. We ask this in the power of Jesus' name. Amen. I have some really exciting and heartening stewardship news to share with you this morning. We got an update from Julie last night. Just a couple of interesting things to note. We have 12 brand new pledges in the congregation, some of them people who've been worshiping here for less than a month, representing $62,200. 17 persons in the congregation have increased their pledge this year, a 20% increase over what they were giving last year, representing about $26,000. And we've already received to date 39 pledges, representing $269,200 toward our $600,000 goal. That puts us about 15% ahead of where we were last year in the pledge campaign, which is really exciting. We also know that not everybody in the congregation pledges. It's very easy for us to think, my gift is a recurring payment. It comes out of my check. It comes out of my bank account at the first of every month. Why do I have to pledge? Pledges are important, not because they're contracts you sign in blood. You can always call and change a pledge if you need to, but they help us budget effectively and efficiently for the coming year. When we can anticipate roughly what it is we're going to receive in giving, that helps us make sure that we can best steward all of our resources and fund as many of those important ministries that we all love and participate in. So I want to encourage you, if you have not already, to take a few moments in the next couple of weeks, talk to your friends and neighbors that you know are part of the ministries here, and invite them to make a pledge or an estimate of giving. Even if it's there's a bone in the air. I don't know what just happened. Even if it's just $5 a month, knowing that income is there is really, really helpful. So please, take a few moments, have that conversation, help them know why you give if you are a pledging person here at the church. Every bit that we give makes a difference, and it goes back to serving the needs of our neighbors. I think that's all I had, so I'm going to turn it over to our treasurer, Lee, who will lead us through today's meeting.
Hello, good morning, and hello to everyone that is joining us virtually. Thank you very much for attending a presentation on church finances. So I'm Lee Bullis. I'm the SSUMC treasurer. So I am the layperson responsible for oversight of church finances. I am also responsible for signing the checks, though luckily I do this virtually. And in this role, I serve on the church council and I chair our budget and operations committee. The committee is extremely dedicated and thoughtful. I just wanted to recognize everyone on the committee, Becky Eager, Cheryl Lammy, David Renfro, Jean Rich, Erin Cirilla, and our financial secretary, Lynn Waters. The committee works closely with our external accountant, Julie Hansen. Hi, Julie. From Nonprofit Accounting Solutions. So the purpose of today's presentation is to provide an update on the church's finances and on the 2024 budgeting process. So please let me know if you have any clarifying questions. I would ask that you leave substantive questions until the end. If you do have a question, please wait to receive the microphone. Our virtual participants will only be able to hear you if you speak into the microphone. So first, I would like to review our current financial picture. I'm going to be speaking from this handout. The handout covers our operating budget. So this is our day-to-day expenses on what it costs to keep the church operating. So you can see our 2023 budget right here in this annual budget column. In 2023, we had budgeted $828,000 in revenue, $954,000 in expenses, with a deficit of $126,000. As of September 30th, we had revenue of $693,000. By this point in the year, we had budgeted to receive only $596,000, so we are significantly ahead of budget. And as you can see from this little pie chart, the one on the top, we have two main sources of revenue. The purplish color is generous contributions from the congregation, and then the teal color is money we receive to rent out the church building. This is mostly rent from long-term tenants, like the preschool Spring Knolls. The other little salmon color piece of the pie is transfers from restrictions. So these are donations that are earmarked for special purposes. So if you tag your donation going somewhere special, like our children's ministry or our music ministry. As of September 30th, and we had $722,000 in expenses. By this point in the year, we had budgeted to spend $715,000, so we are a little bit behind budget there. As you can see from the expenses pie chart, the one on the bottom, our expenses fall into 5 big buckets. So the largest expenses are personnel, which is the orange one, which is salaries for our clergy and lay staff. Facilities, which is the blue piece. This is maintaining our current building and our 2 parsonages where Pastor Will and Pastor Daniel live. We have administrative costs, which is the gray slice. So this is supplies, the copy machine, software, and professional services. Programming is kind of the ministries of the church. This is green, so this is Vacation Bible School. And the yellow slice is apportionments, which is what we give to support the Worldwide United Methodist Church. And then, as of September 30th, we had a deficit of $29,000. So by this point in the year, we had budgeted to have a deficit of $119,000. So we are way ahead of budget. But this is still a deficit. Though it's much better than we predicted. One of the reasons that we are so ahead on our deficit is that we received a few very generous but one-time donations. So in addition to our operating budget, we have also been making investments in capital projects. As I have said before, the building is huge, and many of our systems, equipment, and fixtures are original to the building. So some of our capital projects stem from deferred maintenance, some from items and systems that are at end of life or have failed after existing beyond end of life, and some from our current needs like our AV project. Our list of projects is very long, and we can't do everything all at once. We have to use our resources wisely. So this is our money, the volunteer time of our facilities committee members, and staff time, which is basically Pastor Will, while we have searched for an operations director. So we have tried to balance between critical immediate needs, like if we don't fix this thing, we don't have air conditioning, and important projects like the new sidewalk ramp out on the chapel door. So some of our current projects that we're are underway that we're planning are improving our sanctuary doors. So these are the doors on this side. They are heavy and difficult to open, and we need a building that is welcoming and accessible to everyone. We also need to improve the fellowship hall doors downstairs, and we're improving the parsonage where Pastor Will lives. We need to make sure all of his windows open, replacing the very old electrical panel, and fixing his fence so that it doesn't fall on his neighbors. This is important both because our church should be providing Pastor Will a safe and comfortable home, but also the parsonage is a key asset of the church, and we need to be good stewards of our assets. We are currently funding these projects through our capital reserve. The capital reserve is not the operating budget on these pie charts. The capital reserve is money that we received from the sale of the Marvin Memorial Building and the sale of the old parsonage where Reverend Rachel Cornwall lived. We currently have $2.5 million in our capital reserve, though some of it is earmarked for those projects that I already mentioned. We do need to be mindful that once we have spent this money, it's gone. So we are doing our best to be mindful as how we invest those funds. But our church is a really old building, and some of our projects cannot be deferred. And then I also want to be clear that the capital reserve is a special pot of money that we can only spend on capital projects. So we, as the congregation, set aside those funds in special charge conferences, and we were required to do so by the United Methodist Church. But that means we can't take the money and spend it on operations, the items in the pie chart. So it can't be spent on things like staff salaries, vacation Bible school, the electricity bill, snow removal. This is a very important point to keep in mind as we turn to our next item, which is the 2024 budget. So the Budget and Operations Committee has been working hard over the last few months on preparing the 2024 budget. We discovered that SSUMC has not had a robust budgeting process in the past. And as I mentioned in my presentation earlier this year, we basically zeroed out and reset our financial records this year when our new accountant, Julie, came on board. So we're somewhat starting from scratch in preparing our budget. So I'm going to speak about the collaborative process that we are undertaking and give you an update on where we are now. The final budget will be ready for your review and approval at our charge conference later this year. So I personally see budgets as encapsulating two major components. One is financial realities, and then an organization's values. So the Budget and Operations Committee and the Leadership Council have been reflecting on those items as a starting point for our budget. I wanted to share those with you to set the stage for the rest of our conversation. So our budgeting values come in kind of two buckets. So those that are financially and operationally focused, and those that are ministry focused. So for kind of the financial operations piece, one, we need to be good stewards of our monetary resources. So these are donations from the congregation, our capital reserves. Two, we need to be good stewards of our tangible assets, so the building and our parsonages. Three, we need to treat our staff well, and this is a value that we really need to lean into. Four, we need to prioritize sustainability and future generations, so we shouldn't kind of not spend on something and just say, oh, we're going to pay for it in the future. For things like don't build buildings with windows that can't open here or at Pastor Will's house. And then 5, we need to prioritize our affordable housing project because that will help us into the future as well as providing important housing for our community. And then for our ministry-focused values, we need to be welcoming to all of God's people, and particularly being welcoming to our virtual participants. Hello? We also want to feed all of God's people, mind, body, and spirit. These are things like education, discipleship, food ministries. Third, We value our children, our families, and our youth. And fourth, we value our justice ministries. So we have been working on improving the budgeting process for 2024. So our goal was to create a collaborative process between lay leaders, church staff, and our accountant, Julie. So the Budget and Operations Committee began initial discussions over the summer. We asked our church staff to prepare draft budgets of what they would like to see for 2024 programming activities. But we know our church programs are really important to our congregation and to potential new members, so we also asked the staff for 1 or 2 new items that they would love to be able to add next year. And so then the Leadership Council had a special meeting to review a draft budget. But so far, our conversations have focused on all the things that we would love to be able to do in 2024 and making sure that we captured all of the things we have to pay for, like trash removal and the janitorial contract. We know that the pieces of the budget that are most important and visible to the congregation are our staff and our programs, which are the orange and green pieces of the pie. And we want to be able to invest in the programs requested by our staff. And let me tell you, Miss Marie has some really amazing and inspirational ideas that we would love to be able to fund. I also need to acknowledge that the church has not treated its staff as well as it should. Most years, we have not offered raises, and when we did, they were measly. And we do not offer health insurance to our full-time lay staff, which I find pretty appalling. We do offer a stipend of $1,400 that staff can use to purchase health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, but $1,400 does not go very far. So our Leadership Council and our Budget and Operations Committee feel very strongly that we need to improve the total compensation, which is salary and benefits, for our staff. So we sat down and we tallied our best estimates for everything that we want to do and everything that we have to do, and we tallied how much we expect to take in next year through congregational giving and through our tenants, and the numbers didn't add up. We were left with a pretty big shortfall in our draft budget. So our Leadership Council and our Budget and Operations Committee will be working together to close that gap. There's a lot of strategies that we're going to use to close the gap. We're going to take a second look at every line item in the budget, and we will be reviewing our staffing structure since personnel costs are a large portion of the budget. As you can see from your handout, we budgeted an operating deficit of $126,000 for 2023. So the Budget and Operations Committee very, very strongly recommends that we budget a deficit of no more than $100,000 for 2024. This recommendation is twofold. First, we need to make progress on our deficit to get to a place with a balanced and sustainable budget. And two, we can't afford it. We only have about $100,000 in our operating reserves, so even if we spend the full $100,000 as a deficit, that will wipe out our operating reserve. So I know that this could sound rather distressing, so I wanted to highlight some potential bright lights on the horizon. So first is the affordable housing project. Once the project is completed, it should bring in additional revenue, but that is several years in the future. We are in discussions with a couple new tenants that could potentially bring in tens of thousands of dollars in rent, but those discussions are still in the exploratory phase and nothing is certain yet. Additionally, we are making capital investments in our building, and some of those are leading to lower utility bills. So to conclude, I wanted to talk about another key component of closing our budget deficit, the congregation. So I encourage you to please prayerfully consider your pledge for 2024. As I discussed in the beginning, a budget is a reflection of financial realities and values. So this is true for a church budget, but it's also true for a household budget. So I encourage you to consider how your household budget reflects your personal values. And after you have completed that reflection, please head to the church website and complete your 2024 pledge. So next week, October 29th, is Consecration Sunday. We will be blessing our 2024 pledges, and after worship, we will be gathering for a soul food potluck. Please register to attend on the church website so we can have an accurate head count. I hope to see you there. So I know that was a lot of information. And kind of dry, but thank you for bearing with me. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Please wait for the microphone to ask questions. We want to make sure that everyone joining online can hear the questions. And if you are on live and live streaming the event, I think you should also be able to ask questions. If you post them in the comment chat section, I think Kim is out there and can maybe read them for us. Carl?
Thank you. Thank you for that comprehensive report on the budget and the forecasting. And I just have a question. When was the last time that we had an external audit?
I don't know. This is absolutely something that we need to do. So Julie, our new financial person, is working to prepare us for an audit. So that's, again, one of the reasons we kind of zeroed everything out. So we're going to have all of our complete financial picture. Our goal is to have an external audit of spring of next year. But we kind of need one full year of finances and financial records for auditors.
The church has never in its history had an external audit. Never. Reverend Catherine once completed an in-house audit for us, but that was during the tenure of Tom Bronkow in the early 90s.
Kim, do you see any questions from online? Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you very much for attending. My email address is was in the e-news talking about this event. So if you have further questions or you think of more questions as this kind of processes, please let me know and I would be happy to answer them. And then I think Pastor Will wants to say a few words.
Just a quick reminder to all of us. So when I say pledged receipts, does that mean anything to anybody in the room? Some of us, most of us know. So let me explain what I mean when I say pledged receipts. When we talk about our pledged receipts, that means the amount of money pledged in 2023 that we've received. So pledged receipts. Year to date, we're at about 63% pledged receipts. We should be at about 77% of our pledged receipts. Meaning that some of us have made pledges that we've not yet fulfilled or we're not able to fulfill. So I just want to encourage us all, as we're looking at the rest of our budgets for the 2023 fiscal year, if you made a pledge last year and you're not going to be able to fulfill it, that's perfectly okay. Please let Julie know, because that will help us kind of know how we're going to end the year. If you know that you're going to fulfill your pledge, it's helpful for us to know. We'd encourage you to catch up if you haven't had a chance to do that. We also know that some of you may look at your budget at the end of this year and go, oh, wow, I've got some extra money in my pocket. And so I will invite you in the same spirit as my friend and colleague Kathy Barden to take a look in those pockets and see if there might be something else there that you could use to support the ministry and mission of our church. I want to acknowledge our staff that are with us today. Pastor Daniel is with our senior high youth, but Miss Marie is here with us and Leona is here with us. They work tirelessly to support the mission and ministry of this church. And it's because of the work that they're doing that I look out on this sanctuary every Sunday morning and see a face I've never seen here before. We've had 15 first-time visitors in the last month alone. That's just the month of October. And it's because of the dedicated work of our staff that are reaching out to new people with innovative ways of proclaiming the gospel that's happening. So can we thank them? And Pastor Daniel, since this is being recorded. The last thing I want to acknowledge is on that pie chart. So when you take a look at that pie chart, tell me what you notice about our budget. And what priority does that show to you? When you look at that bottom pie chart, what does it look like we prioritize? Facilities and staff. Now, what I'll tell you is that in a church budgeting process, staff should normally represent about 40% of our budget. To Lee's point, and that's true across the board of any size church, so to Lee's point, we have historically not paid our staff well. That's a problem that we're working to correct. And it's true across the board. So I'm grateful for the board and the ways that they're helping us think about that. What we see least prioritized there is what? Programming. What do you think that it is that attracts, engages, and empowers people? It's probably not our cooling tower, right? I mean, some people really like cooling towers. I know Kim's dad was an HVAC person, so maybe that's your thing. If you're an HVAC contractor, by the way, call me after. I've got some work for you downstairs. We have to invest in our programming ministries if we're going to continue growing as a congregation. And I don't just mean growing in terms of numbers, although I have a dream, and I believe we'll get there, that we'll look out on this sanctuary floor one day and the place will be packed. I think it'll happen. It was pretty full today. But it means growing deep, growing in discipleship, growing in our individual and collective capacity to imitate Christ in ways that bring about that world of justice and peace that we long for. So know that we are prioritizing programming as a central part of the way that we're working to secure our ministry here for generations to come. We have to. Because if we don't do that, no matter how great the music is on Sunday morning, no matter how inspiring the preacher might be, there are some guest preachers coming up. No matter all those things, people will walk in the doors and they'll walk out. And that's not what we want to be, I don't think, as a congregation, if we truly feed people mind, body, and spirit. So prayerfully consider your pledge. Let's hear it for our Budget and Operations Committee and their work. And let's hear it for our congregation and your extravagant generosity that has helped us already close a gap that we were afraid we weren't going to be able to close. So can we give ourselves a round of applause and thanksgiving? It's that generosity that makes all the difference. So thank you for all the ways you show up to serve and give at the church.